Phil Collins was once the heartbeat of rock music. His voice filled stadiums and his drums shook the world. From Genesis to his solo career, Phil seemed unstoppable. Every song sounded personal, powerful, and unforgettable. Fans believed he was living the perfect life. But behind that sound was a man slowly breaking. Fame came fast, and with it came pressure. Phil wanted to give everything to music, even if it cost him everything else. At the start, he didn't see the price. He only heard applause. Years later, that applause would echo as regret. This is the story of how a rock legend gained the world and lost parts of himself along the way. Phil Collins grew up in England with a love for music and acting. As a child, he dreamed of being on stage. He practiced endlessly, driven by passion and hunger. Music felt like freedom to him. Drums became his voice when words failed. Even early on, Phil pushed himself hard. He believed success required sacrifice. Family, rest, and balance came second. At that time, it felt worth it. He was building something special. But those early choices shaped the regrets that would follow him for decades. When Phil joined Genesis, his life changed overnight. The band was creative, ambitious, and demanding. At first, Phil was just the drummer. Then fate pushed him to the front as lead singer. The pressure doubled instantly. Fans compared him to Peter Gabriel. Critics watched his every move. Phil worked non-stop to prove himself. He succeeded, but at a cost. Touring, recording, and stress began to control his life. There was no pause button anymore. Success exploded faster than Phil expected. Genesis became massive, and Phil's face was everywhere. Interviews, tours, studio sessions, there was no escape. The world wanted more music, more shows, more Phil Collins. He said yes to everything. Inside, exhaustion quietly grew. He ignored it. Rock stars weren't supposed to slow down. This was the beginning of a pattern he would later regret deeply. Phil's solo career made him even bigger. Songs like In the Air Tonight turned him into a global icon. The money, awards, and praise were endless, but solo success meant even more pressure. Phil was now responsible for everything. The expectations were crushing. He kept working, even when his body and heart begged him to stop. While Phil chased music, his personal life suffered. Relationships cracked under the weight of his absence. Marriages failed. He missed important moments at home. Phil later admitted he chose music over people too often. At the time, he believed success justified everything. Years later, those empty rooms felt louder than any concert crowd. Phil's children grew up while he was on tour. He wasn't always there. Phone calls replaced hugs. Letters replaced presents. Phil has spoken openly about this regret. Fame gave him everything, except time. Watching his children grow from a distance became one of his deepest pains. Years of drumming damaged Phil's body. Nerve problems, pain, and injuries followed him. Playing drums became difficult, then impossible. For a musician, this was devastating. His body finally forced him to stop. Phil later said he wished he had listened sooner. When Phil could no longer play drums, he felt lost. Drums were his identity. Without them, he questioned who he was. The silence hurt more than the pain. This loss hit him emotionally, not just physically. It marked a turning point in his life. Behind closed doors, Phil battled depression. The spotlight faded, and loneliness grew. Fame didn't protect him from dark thoughts. In many ways, it made them worse. He felt guilt, regret, and sadness all at once. Phil turned to alcohol to numb the pain. What started as relief became another problem. Addiction quietly took control. He later admitted it was one of his biggest mistakes. Alcohol didn't heal anything. It only delayed the pain. As Phil struggled, critics became louder. Some mocked his music. Others questioned his legacy. Phil felt misunderstood. The same world that once praised him now judged him harshly. This shift hurt deeply. Eventually, Phil stepped back. He needed distance. Music had given him everything, but also taken so much. Walking away felt like failure. but also survival. This decision came with mixed emotions. As new artists rose, Phil watched from the sidelines. He felt forgotten at times. This hurt, but it also gave him perspective. Fame was never permanent. Phil began to reflect on his choices. He didn't blame anyone else. He owned his mistakes. This honesty was painful but necessary. Regret became a teacher. Phil worked to rebuild relationships. Apologies were made. Some wounds healed, others remained scars. He learned that saying sorry doesn't erase time, but it can open doors. Even after stepping back, health issues followed Phil. Walking became difficult. Sitting was painful. Each day reminded him of the price he paid for overworking his body. When Phil hears his old songs, he feels mixed emotions. Pride and pain exist together. Each hit carries a memory, both good and bad. Phil realized fame doesn't equal happiness. Success without balance leads to emptiness. This lesson came late, but it came honestly. Phil doesn't hate his past. He understands it. Regret for him is about growth, not punishment. Saying yes to everything cost Phil peace. He wished it, as he had learned to say no sooner. When the crowd leaves, silence remains. Phil learned this the hard way. Phil now warns young musicians about burnout. He hopes others won't repeat his mistakes. Aging forced Phil to accept limits. This acceptance brought unexpected calm. Despite regret, Phil remains grateful. Music gave him a voice and a legacy. Phil wonders how history will remember him. This question still matters to him. Some fans stayed loyal through everything. Their support means more now than ever. Phil's life is quieter now. Thoughts are louder. Reflection fills his days. Success is no longer charts and tours. It's peace and honesty. Healing is slow and incomplete, but real. Some things can't be fixed. Phil has learned to live with that. Music is now memory, not pressure. Self-forgiveness has been the hardest step. Growing old publicly adds another layer of regret and acceptance. Phil Collins is more than hits and headlines. He's human. Regret has taught Phil what success never did. Phil would choose balance every time. Life slowed down. The noise faded. Peace began to grow. Love, music, memories, and lessons. Phil Collins shook the world with his music. But his greatest message now is simple. Fame is loud, regret is quiet, and balance is everything.